Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm going to be going over my latest PSA sub that just popped. And in that sub, I crossed over a few vintage cards from SGC or CSG holders into PSA. So with 7 cards in total, 2 from CSG, 5 from SGC. So let's see how we did. Now, I don't have the cards back yet. It was a 20 card sub. But PSA now puts their photos online. So I took the photos from the sub that just popped and made a little presentation here that we're going to go through and show you how I did, because I think it's easier to do this kind of crossover comparison in this format than just showing the cards. Now, I'll be getting those cards in, including the 13 other cards that are in that sub, and doing another reveal video for the entire order to show you what they look like in person, because honestly, PSA's photos kind of suck. So let's get into it and we'll show you how I did and if it's bitter disappointment or just meh, and we'll go through it. All right, so the first card I did, and we'll do CSG first. So again, if you saw my original video I did on my sub that I submitted, you'll see all the cards that I attempted to sub over to PSA. Now, here's the actual cards again, and I try to find the original photos from the original auctions and how much I paid for the cards, so you can see, what I had into the cards. And then obviously these are $50 grades, so you got to add $50 to all the cards really to get the true cost. The other thing too is that obviously. With the $18 fee coming open, I'm going to be doing probably more of this, but I limited it to just these few cards here because these are the ones I really felt strongly about, or I wanted just to see what would happen. Now, the first card is the 72 Willie Mays. Now, when I reviewed this card, I thought it was very nice, and so I really thought this had a good chance to cross over, and I paid $130 for it. And this is the original card from the original video, or from the original auction. And how did I do? Well, I got a PSA 8. So in this case, CSG crossed over exactly 1-for-1 to PSA. Now, the VCP average for this card is $288. So, that's $158 difference. So in totality, I was able to cross it over straight. So no grade plus or minus, no pluses or minuses. It went straight over. And I gained about $150 in value. Now, if it came back a PSA 7, I still would have probably broke even on the card, about $145. And so the good thing about this, and the reason why I made some of these decisions, was in this case it was sort of a safe bet, because even if I got a 7 on it, I wouldn't have really lost money on it. And I felt really strongly after seeing it in hand that this was a strong candidate for an 8. Now, the next card is not the same story. So I want to play you the original video from that first, when I was going through the sub, when I actually popped the card out of the holder, and this is what this is basically what I found. Here's the card I'm worried about. So let me pull it out of here. Little pieces of plastic on the back. So the back looks good. So let's let you see the back. No issues. It's centered. The issue for this card. Maybe I take the auto right there. That's bad, guys. That's bad. Oh my god, it's worse than. Yeah, when I saw this on the card when I first bought it. All right, so what I go on to say there is I saw it when I first got it in hand. I didn't see it in the auction, so obviously it's hard to tell. And I said in the video that I thought maybe this occurred while the card was being put into holders. However, the other corner, the other top corner had damage as well. There was no way this card was going to go to an 8. Even if without the damage on the right side, the card was probably a 7 at best. This card was way overgraded if that damage existed on that card before. So what did I get? I got a 6. So that's not great. So I did pay $145 for the card raw. Now you got to remember, that the Aaron is a much harder card to get in a PSA 8 than the Willie Mays. In 7 and 6th grade, it's almost equal in price, but in an 8, it's much more expensive. Now, VCP average for a 6 is $113. So again, net loss of 1.5 grades, and a value loss of $32. So again, you had $50, so that's around an $82 loss. Now the card looks great in the holder, and this is why I bought it. But again, that side damage is hard to see, and either they didn't look at the card very well, because you could see it and just switching the light a little bit. So this would have been an easy one to tell. Now, this is where it gets sad. If it came back a 7, it would have been 150 or even a little bit more, depending on the centering. This card is very well centered. But an average PSA 8 goes for 450, and this is why I made such a big gamble. Was I thought, if it had a chance at an 8, it was going to be worth, basically 3 times what I paid for it. So that's why I did what I did. And again, this time I came up, snake eyes. But the card itself was damaged, from day one. Either in the holder was damaged or the holder damaged it. But this card had no shot at a 7 or an 8 when I popped it out of the holder. And so, in summary, for CSG, overall, 1 graded straight across by average. I lost 1.5 points in grading. I gained $120, but when you add grading fees into it, basically it's almost a wash. I gained about $20 in total value. So it wasn't great, but in the end I did get a PSA 8 Willie Mays out of it. And that's pretty freaking awesome. So, it was basically 50-50. Now, if I tried 5 more CSG vintage cards and they were like the Aaron, then I would tell you right now, don't ever buy CSG cards. So this is very similar to my experience with SGC, where basically about 1 of every 2 cards has a hidden issue or something that's wrong with it, but the other card either goes across straight or it gets a bump. So, and it kind of averages out. So if they're going to grade similarly to SGC, they're worth the shot, but don't be surprised if your CSG cards come back lower or just maybe just a straight cross. But, I think I got to do a few more cards on CSG to really get a handle on it. So my first experience was kind of meh, honestly. That Aaron was a beautiful looking card in the holder, but man, that damage on that card was pretty terrible. Now here's the first SGC card. Now, this card looked great in the holder. It's a little off center left to right, but I didn't see any real damage on this card at all. So how did it grade? I was guessing it was going to come back a 7 because PSA is super hard on 71 tops. And one of these days I will learn my lesson about 71 tops and quit submitting them to PSA because I can't figure out what they're looking for. I thought this card looked really nice. I thought it was a 7 at minimum. It came back a 6. And I just can't find it. When I get the card back, maybe I'll see something. That upper right corner has got a little damage, but I mean, this is a 6, guys. I mean, you saw that Hank Aaron 72 with basically the whole right top of that corner bent over, and the other corner had damage. There's nothing like that on this card. There's no like bends, paper pulling up, corner bent. I mean, nothing like that. So I don't see it on this card. Maybe there's a back wrinkle I missed, but this is a pretty tough grade for a card that was an SGC 7.5 holder. So it went from a $211 card, which is why I paid for it. This is the actual SGC card. I paid for $211 for it. So I basically lost $84, lost 1.5 points in grades. And again, if it came back a straight 7, I would have still lost money. And again, the BCP average between 6s and 7s is kind of tight. I think a 7 that looked nice would probably bring a little bit more in auction. You could probably get a little bit more if you tried. An 8 would have been $288. I thought it had a shot at an 8 in the holder. When I popped it, I did say, I think there was a little bit more wear damage on this card, and I thought it would grade a 7 when I first pulled it out of the holder, if you go to my video. Now, this is the one, and I'm sorry my video didn't work, my reveal. Sorry about that, guys. But this was a early Wynn. It was a SGC 86, and this is the one I felt the most confident about of any of them. I felt like this card really would have graded straight at least a 7 minimum. I was very confident. It came back a 6. And this one really hurt because I just felt like this card really was solid. I mean, and you can see the difference in PSA photos right now too, like how terrible their photos are in terms of color. But I think, honestly, unless there's damage I didn't see, that they took the into account the eye appeal and that diamond cut, or the the angled there on the photo, and really hammered the card. I mean, if you look at the corners in this card, it's sharp. The edges are nice. There's nothing I found on the card from a damage perspective. So I feel like this angle cut is really where they hammered it. Maybe it hit that tolerance to where they're like, well, it's either an 8.0C or a 6. And so they gave me a straight 6. I don't know. It to me is a rough grade for me, because I feel like this card in hand, look at the left photo. That's what it really looks like in hand. And it looks really pretty. And now, I paid $200 for it. This card hasn't sold again in an SGC 7.5 since I bought this card. So I don't know what an SGC average price would be right now. I think it'd be closer to $400 actually, based on what a PSA 7's bringing. Or sorry, an SGC 7. Now, if you look at, again, I did gain value from what I paid. But, a PSA 7 brings about $607. So if you look at that, I mean, honestly, that this grade, if it would have been a 7, basically $300 difference. In an 8, it would have been $500 difference. And again, an SGC 7's bringing $400 right now, last sale. So a 7.5 would have had to bring at least $450 or $500. So again, this really hurt. This was probably the most hurtful card in this whole sub for me. Of everything that was graded, this card really hurt the most, because you can see the upside potential on this card was tremendous. If it would have gone from a 86 to a PSA 7, bare minimum, I was going to gain $400 in value. And I just kind of got kind of hosed. I did make money on the card, so I can't really be too upset. But you can see where they were really, I think, tough on this one. I'm just going to whine about it. Everyone in the comments can say, well, it's angle cut, it was overgraded or whatever. But in hand, this card is beautiful. So just rough. Next up is an SGC 3 T206 Chief Bender Old Mill Back. Now, Old Mill Backs, and this is the trees in the background. The Old Mill Back cards are tough. They're tougher to grade. They're tougher to find. So this was definitely one of those cards where I felt like, there's not a lot of sale. So the last 3 brought 185 from SGC. This card hasn't sold in forever. Now, what did I get on the card? Well, I got a 2.5. And again, PSA giving out the half grades like in weird circumstances, and this is one of them. This card had been popped out of its holder for a long time. I popped this card literally 5 years ago, I think 4 years ago. So like it's been sitting around waiting to be subbed for a long time. I think the card value is $400 or more. And that's not because of any past history of sales. It's just because of sales around the grade. And I'll go through it here in a second. But again, I lost about half a point in grade. 2.5 versus a 3. I think that's kind of a wash from a value perspective, honestly. But a PSA 1 sold in April this year for $312. And it's a 2.5, much better eye pill, in my opinion, than that one. So I think this is one that, again, I think at least $400 is my opinion. I think it could be maybe $5. This one isn't too bad. Top to bottom, it's a little rough, but it doesn't have big creases or big damage on the front or back. Not missing paper, so it's a pretty solid card. So pretty happy with this one. Again, it goes into my Chief Bender collection. So this was the biggest wild card for me in terms of grades. This is the one card that, to me, I was super nervous about because, man, PSA hates 71 cards. They're very tough on them. They really hate O-Pee-Chee cards. They really hammer them. They're very quick to give out min sizes for these cards as well. So I was very nervous about this card just because I felt like You know, it could get a min size. They could give it a 6. You know, it's a super solid card. When I looked at it out of the holder, I was super pumped about it. I really thought it could, you know, at least get a 7 minimum, maybe get an 8 if I was lucky. And it came back a 7. So this is like, you know, really, really solid for me. So this is that push, you know, grade. But hey, you know, this card itself is really tough. It's a really tough card to get. You know, I think, you know, I'm not going to sell it less than $500, honestly, because I'm just going to hold it forever if I can't get at least $500 out of it. Again, it's a push. I think, you know, again, that's the value. A PSA 8 sold for $2,000 in 2016. Now, a 7 sold in 2020 for like $220. It was ugly. I think today, in today's market, it would bring more than that. I'm going to keep it if I can't get more than that for it. I'm not going to just give it away. It's a really tough grade, really tough card. Anyone who knows this set and knows, you know, the Pete Rose collection or Pete Rose Master set knows that this card is really tough. All 71 of Peaches are pretty tough for the most part, but the Rose is one of the really low pops. So glad to have it. I'm really excited it just crossed over. And this is where, you know, SGC did treat me fair on this card, because this card was really nice when I looked at it. And you can see, even though this is a really bad photo from PSA in terms of color saturation, you can see just how nice that card looks in that holder. And it fills up that holder really nice as well. So it's definitely not a min size. And so next up is the last card in this, the last card in my sub that was an SGC or PSA crossover. And this is the 69 Pete Rose SGC 88. This card has a slight angle to it, like most 69s. I thought it was very solid, you know, corners, you know, just a really solid card. I thought it had a good shot at crossing over. And what did I get? I got a 7. And I look at it, and I don't really begrudge it too much. I mean, I'm a little upset just because I got nothing above. I got no crossovers in the sub that I got more than the original sub was. So I got no pops. I got no upgrades or anything that was above the original grade. I was hoping to at least get this to push over to an 8. You know, basically because cost-wise, I mean, yeah, I did gain value here. I went from a $92 card, is what I paid for it, to $180. Again, lost 1 grade point. Value-wise, worth a little bit more. But there's that big difference there. That PSA 8 is basically a $200 more card. And again, a 9 is $2,300. I really thought this card was solid. And the other reason why this kind of hurts is this was the last card I picked for my sub. So I had about 40 other cards I could have picked from Griffey Refractors to, you know, Marvel cards of Spider-Man numbered out of, you know, 25 and, you know, just some really more rare cards or things that could have been worth more money. I thought this card had a good shot at an 8 and maybe an 8.5. I really did. I thought it was a really nice card. That's why I picked it for the order. You know, I could have picked a lot of other cards, but I didn't. And so this one kind of hurts a little bit because I was wrong. I should have known better, you know, than to go with kind of a late 60s card, because the value differences are so dramatic between 8s, 9s, and 7s. I should have picked something a little safer. And when I get my big sub in, you'll see some of the other cards I picked that I thought were safer. And again, it's a mixed bag. When the sub comes in, you'll see I did great on some cards, and some cards did some meh on. But overall, with SGC, 5 cards from SGC, I lost 4.5 points in grades, and that's pretty rough. Almost averaging 1 full point of grade loss per card. But with the PSA value of these cards being so much higher than SGC, still that way, guys. I did gain $584 in total value just straight across. If you add in the grading fees, so what I paid for the cards plus the grading fees, I'm up about $234. So was it worth it? Yeah, it's okay. Overall, like $250 if you add the CSG cards in there. I think for the amount of time, money, effort, I wouldn't view this as a triumphant, sub. I have basically 2 cards that were really kick ass. The 71 Opeachy, Pete Rose, and the 72 PSA 8. Maze. Those 2 cards are really solid, good, great cards that will be in my collection or are going to be used for trading. They're solid. The Chief Bender card is, to me, a wash, half a point loss, not a big deal. That's just going in my personal collection. So those 3 cards I'm very happy with. The other 4 cards, especially the early Wynn, I'm really upset, and just in general, just how that went. Just not cool for me, personally. I think that was a rough grade. So, but that's where I'm at. And, again, I think, if you're doing crossovers from SGC or CSG, just be prepared to lose grades, but you may gain more in value. And that's just how it goes. If you do more than 4 or 5 cards, you're going to have a few that are going to get hit lower. You may be a great buyer of SGC cards and see them all in person and be able to really pick the good ones. The problem, again, with CSG and SGC cards is that the edge damage, where the holder or how they put that insert in the card sometimes damages it and you can't see it until you pop it. So that's just how it goes. That's just my experience with it. Hopefully you guys like the video. Hopefully you learned something. It's my first CSG crossovers. So maybe I'll do a few more of them. I do have some more CSG vintage cards that I haven't received yet that I might end up sending in either under the $18 grade or, maybe if, I got actually a pretty big one that I might do something with. So there it is, guys. Hope you like it, and I'll see you next time on Cards and Comics. Bye.